Welcome to Let's Talk Elevators, where we hear from voices within the vertical transportation industry. I'm your host, Morgan Jones, and this show is sponsored by Hyperion Solutions, whose focus is to provide tailored solutions that elevate the customer experience. Joining me today are two industry experts, Torsten Fuka and Nicola Imbimbo. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hello, thank you.
Hello, Morgan. Thank you.
Yeah, so you guys actually go back a long time. You've known each other for like 20 years. How did you guys meet?
I can start with the story behind that
I would
because
love the story.
I started to work for a German company manufacturing wire ropes almost 20 years ago, and we were having a project of collaboration with Torsten for sheaves and traction sheaves, and so I made my first trip into the facility of Torsten just to understand how traction sheaves were made, which was the manufacturing process, and so on and so further. And then I remained impressed about the method of manufacturing, the way in which wire ropes were working together with traction sheaves, and we started to elaborate our concept approaching markets to help the users to use in the best way possible the combination between wire ropes and sheaves. And then it becomes a common way of speaking between the two of us in troubleshooting and finding solutions. So this is what I recall, Torsten. Maybe you have a different history behind that.
No, definitely not. I think it was when in that days when that company started to develop the idea of having full steel ropes with a diameter of 4 millimeter,
Exactly.
which I think is still today for many people sounds fancy to have ropes of 4 millimeter in the field. I remember on that time very well, and it was in that time it was for me the first time when we tried to develop business in your country in Italy, and I can truly remember on a tour that we did together with Stefan, and it was a great experience for me, and so I really remember to that time.
I love that. Well, I would also just love to hear a little bit more from both of you about your respective companies and your times in the industry. So, Torsten, why don't you start for us? Tell us about Fuka.
The Fuka company was established in 1924, so we turned 100 years last year. I'm running the company now as a fourth generation. The company was founded by my great-grandfather. I think in a time about 100 years ago, it was a very special time. It was a time where Europe was in a high level of engineering and development of mechanical issues. Like in our hometown, there was a company that was very well known for the first engines that were built. Yeah, so especially it was Nicholas August Otto. I think he was very well known worldwide, and he had a real impact in even still in modern mobility. And yeah, in this time when the company grew, there was also, of course, a very special time a couple of years later, which was one of the darkest part of Germany's history. And in that time, the company was a mechanical shop and turning shop, and until the 1950s we had the first contact to local elevator manufacturers and service companies, but we still stayed in different industries until the probably 1980s or early 1990s, and then we turned almost with full capacity into the elevator industry, where we are still today. And today it's 90% of everything that our company is doing is related to the elevator industry.
Incredible. Congratulations on 100 years. That's a
Thank you very much.
thing. Nicola, tell us about your history. You're Nick the Elevator Guy. You've got a book. Tell us all the things.
Well, everything started with my family business. My father and my parents were managing an elevator maintenance company into the 70s. When I was born, we were based in the town of Naples in south of Italy, and in the following years we moved in the north of Italy. My father was a Fiam dealer. Fiam is an historical Italian company dealing with elevators that then has been taken over by Marcone. And when I was a teenager, my first job was installing the mechanical part of the elevators. So due to the fact I was the youngest guy into the team, the lightest job to be performed was installing wire ropes. And then it started my passion for wire ropes. Then I brought this to a higher level. I graduated in mechanical engineering in a polytechnic with a graduation thesis devoted to non-destructive testing for wire ropes. And then I started to work with international company dealing with ropes for cranes in the beginning, for aerial ropeway, for funiculars, minings. I was dealing with all the machines that were using ropes to move something, material or people. And then I joined a wire rope producer from Germany dealing with elevator ropes. Until in 2011, I went into Prysmian organization. Prysmian is the former Pirelli Electrical Cable, a company that is having more than 100-year history, specialized in electrical cables, but inside Prysmian, there are different divisions, and one of these divisions is elevator and escalator. Inside the elevator and escalator portion of the business unit, I'm in charge of the global application management. That basically means I'm dealing with the mechanical components of the elevator, mainly related to suspension means. So wire ropes, bugle ropes, belts, and thanks to my former experience both into maintenance of the elevator, installing and manufacturing, I'm as well member of the International Code Committee. So I'm member of the European SAN Committee, and I'm as well member of the North American Code Committee, in which I'm member of the Mechanical Design Committee. So this is helping me to translate the practical experience into the technical rules, trying to figure out the best way to implement the rules into the real world. So that's more or less very synthetical part of my history. But due to the fact that I'm a very passionate guy that loves to sketch cartoons and drawing by my hands, at a certain point during the COVID, I decided to start to publish into social network my work art. Because my daughter told me, Papa, you are quite boring in sketching only cartoon dedicated to elevator. We are not interested as a family. Please share with the industry. And then I started to do that. So my cartoon of Nick the Elevator Guy got quite good success into social network. And at a certain point, due to the fact that I'm also teacher for the industry for training courses, I decided to publish as well a book. The book name is obviously Nick the Elevator Guy, in which I try to consolidate all the knowledge and the practical experience I learned during the years in a easy, digestible manner, in a way that people can listen about storytelling, little episode, and silly stories about episode that happened into the past, in a way that can be absorbed in a friendly manner. Good success, I have to admit. So I'm quite happy to have started this journey. Gave me a lot of satisfaction in this respect.
Yeah, I love that. You guys have such impressive resumes and such incredible experience. I'm very humbled to have you both here to talk shivs and ropes and all the things today. So I appreciate you guys being on. Both of you work pretty closely with OEMs and contractors globally across the elevator industry. What are some common things that are being asked of us as suppliers on the rope side or the shiv side? What are those pressures being put on you guys today? What's the market demanding?
The first question that comes out is suspension means that last longer, and second point, suspension means that can work with the smaller sheave possible, because in that way, inside the same shaft dimension, you can place a larger cabin. The space into the building need to be used in the best and efficient way possible. So the larger the cabin, the better it is for the traffic management. But this put challenge both on suspension means and sheaves, because the suspension means are becoming smaller and smaller in diameter, and they become quite aggressive against the traction sheaves. So traction sheaves needs to be more robust in this respect to resist to very high tensile wires, of which the rope are made of. Harder sheaves means that they become aggressive against the rope. So you need to find out the proper balance in this fight. So small dimension, long lifetime, high performance is not that easy. So I'm just introducing the topic, but now I will hand over to Torsten, because the traction sheave is definitely his topic on that.
I would like it to answer in a way that no matter if you're talking to OEMs or small independent companies, quality matters, availability matters. As you know, our business is, of course, also there's business for new installations, but our biggest part of the business is for spare parts and modernization. In each part of the world, you are faced with the situation that there are a lot of elevators in service where the OEM manufacturer is not existing anymore, and spare part availability is very hard. And this is one of our benefits, that we offer a huge range of products for elevators where usually not spare parts are usually not available anymore. And we know the specific standards starting from all the information. And as Nicola said, that there's such a huge range of knowledge that you need to have to provide the right parts for the right customer, especially for new installations in Europe, where the quality of the product, of the sheath and the rope is so important, where we used to cooperate with the well-known rope manufacturers to double check the quality with each other, doing testings together to make sure that we offer the right product to, especially to the OEMs and also to drive manufacturers and others, to give them the opportunity to say, we can focus on the product that we are good in, mostly building motors, building machines, and that they can hand over the responsibility for the quality of the sheath to us, to support them in a way, and also with the knowledge that we often share with each other, sometimes in the evening by texting. Nicola sending me questions back and forth, and some topics can be solved just during the evening by texting.
I love just to hear that guys across the industry, on your side for the Sheaves, Torsten, and ropes on your side, Nick, that you guys are talking to each other, that you're talking about what matters and you're asking each other questions, all for the betterment of how do we engineer these things to perform the best, or to last the longest, or to serve the market, like you said, Torsten. I think that's really important that we keep those kind of lines of communication open across the supplier network, so that we're all working together for the greater good, ultimately.
I think this is, in my opinion, it's common. We are talking with a lot of people as partners or customer, which is, I think it's very important just also to listen to other people, to your customers, to your partners. But I think the special relationship with Nicola, and I would say at least 2 or 3 other persons in the industry, is like the same spirit of, we love what we are doing. For example, texting also during the weekend when there is an important question, it doesn't feel like it's kind of work, it's passion.
Right.
Yes, and so it's sometimes I find myself in getting into, for example, into Nicola's thoughts, and just to continue with that and give him a call on the next day and say, hey, have you did you consider this? And so it's kind of a fun, because I think we all love what we are doing and to share information, which is very important.
Absolutely. Nicola, tell me, we talked a little bit through that conversation about the importance of how ropes and sheaves work together. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of the application engineering, or each specific instance, and what matters?
Absolutely. It is not just a matter of ropes and sheaves, but it is a matter of configurations. Very often, I'm approached by a customer telling me, hey, the ropes today are not the same as 20 or 30 years ago. They are not performing the same way. And what I'm trying to have them understanding is that 30 to 40 years ago, configuration were different, especially in Europe. North America is more on the big size, on big diameter of sheaves, but Europe is fully committed to go smaller and smaller into traction sheaves, and even also having V grooves applied as traction grooves that are really aggressive for wire ropes. The point is that you cannot design an elevator simply following a technical standard, because the technical standard is provided to you safety requirements, but not performance. Okay, so performance comes from your own experience. You need to make a certain configuration, testing into the field, understanding how it works out, and then with trial and correct parameter, you can find out the perfect fine-tuning for your expectancy of life of the combination between the two elements, the suspension means and the traction ship. In the past, I was as well elevator designer, so I developed by myself an Excel file in which I'm introducing all the parameters of the elevator, and I'm capable of understanding if the configuration is too tight or not, if the specific pressure is too high. New technical rules do not address any requirement about specific pressure, but specific pressure is really driving the lifetime into the service. So when a customer approached me telling me, hey, the lifetime of both ropes and sheaves is not enough, in the past it was better, the first thing that I'm asking is, please provide me the configuration, and then I can come back to you with recommendation of modification of your configuration to get better lifetime, better life expectancy. And so it is not that easy. It is not that from a catalog you pick up a vendor rope and then you're done. It is more a sort of art, of craftsmanship in a certain way that comes from experience, from years about understanding how the elements are working together. I know that it's not that easy to have a general contractor understanding that, because some maintenance company are not so deep into the design, calculation, configuration, and so on. If they put the effort to understand the minimum about this type of phenomena, then they can get a far better lifetime and performance in service. Are you getting the same feeling, Torsten, about the market?
I would say that there are some companies who today have own experts that are, I would say, as deep into all details as you with ropes or we with sheaves. But the average elevator company or service company, they just want to have things happen. So they want to just order something and like this plug and play idea. Don't think about it, just assemble it and it should work proper. And if something is not working proper, then they usually call someone to help them. So the average level of knowledge decreased in the past years, in my opinion, but this is more the idea of probably of the German or European market. But sometimes I'm really impressed about the detailed knowledge that some people in the field collected over the years about the entire elevator.
Yeah, I think I experienced that as well in the North American market. I think we are seeing a roll off of those really experienced, really knowledgeable people from the industry and are now looking at the next generation of people who don't have that same level of technical expertise or experience. And I think I see a lot of companies, Torsten, to your point, who want to just rely on us as suppliers. They want to come to us as the experts in our fields, on our products, and trust that we're going to engineer them in such a way to provide them with what they need, and they can kind of take a load off, trusting that we're supplying the right thing. So there's a lot of pressure and importance on us as suppliers of various components to ensure we are having this kind of collaboration. We are talking to each other and understanding how each of our pieces works together for the whole.
That's a huge difference in my opinion. Like, probably we are experts in shifts and pulleys and probably brakes and some other stuff, but there are also people around that have a detailed knowledge about the entire elevator from the bottom to the shaft.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the same on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. Maybe like giving you an example, when I first met your colleague Carlos from a Titan, we feel like twin brothers from both sides of the Atlantic Ocean, as we both have the same background, also with practical knowledge, real world experience. And so this was also what Nicola said at the early beginning. It's good to have the knowledge how to do a calculation. It's good to understand the theoretical part of the elevator. But if you never had your hands on an elevator or even on problems on an elevator, then you will never come to a situation that you can solve problems in a detailed way. And I can also remember I had conversations with Nicola and with Carlos and other people where we just talked hours about just the surface of the groove from a traction ship, which all the rest of the audience said, okay, these guys are crazy in the way. What the hell are they talking about for that long time about just the surface of a cast iron part? But it's very important.
Right. We often hear, at least in North America, I feel like from a consultant perspective, a pressure or a push to commit or guarantee a certain number of years of rope life or expectancy on a job. Nicola, tell us what you feel like is realistic or how we can try to meet that ask realistically.
Yeah. Now you need to be prepared to hear about a little bit of formula and calculations, because the point is that there are dreams that says, hey, we want to have at least 10 years of working on this configuration. But everything depends on the number of trips. So it depends how many trips the elevator is making per day, and then you make the multiplication, you get to a full year. And then it depends as well on how many sheaves, simple bending, reverse bending are present in this specific configuration. Because the reverse bending is a sort of killer for the wire ropes. One single reverse bending equals 4 times a simple bending. So to answer properly this question is not that easy. It is important to know the configurations, and then it comes a formula. So sorry to enter into a formula, but we need to deal with that. The only formula available into the market for the calculation of the lifetime of ropes is based on Professor Feyer's formulation. So Professor Feyer's formulation is having a very complex shape, so you really need to be a sort of nerd to understand fully all the detail, but into the European code, this has been partially introduced into the European technical code. There is a formula for the calculation of the safety factor that is a formula logarithmic exponential that is including a lot of parameters, the shape of the grooves, the diameter of the sheaves, the simple bending, the reverse bending. So if you are respecting this type of calculations that is reported there, then your elevator can travel at least 600,000 trips. And this is the baseline of the expectancy of the life. So if you are deviating from this formula and you're using smaller traction sheave, a smaller bending ratio, more aggressive sheaves and so on, then the 600,000 trips is a dream. You will never get to this point. Then you need to modify the configurations. So when I received the question, I want a lifetime of at least 10 years, my question back is, please give me the configuration of your elevator. Allow me to double check with the safety factor formula if we are staying within the 600,000 trips or not, and then I can come back to you with recommendation of modification of your configuration in a way to extend a little bit the life expectancy, or modify the configuration to try to get more lifetime expectancy out of this configuration. So it is not an easy question. When consultants are approaching me with this type of questions, I told them, be prepared to enter into a very detailed technical discussion, because it is not that easy to answer the topic. So if they are prepared to enter this type of art and to disclose completely configuration, calculation, and so on, I believe we can address the method of lifetime improving. So to make the topic simple, I introduced it into my book very funny illustration to explain how every parameter is affecting the lifetime of the ropes. And there is one specific chapter dedicated on how to increase the lifetime of ropes and sheaves in service with an easy approach, just to make it digestible for everyone.
I think there's a lot there, and I think one of the biggest takeaways from me kind of digesting all of that is building owners, consultants, contractors, everyone involved really has to take away an understanding that there's going to be a sacrifice somewhere. You know, you can't have the smallest machine with the smallest sheaves and get the longest rope life. All of those variables that you kind of introduced have a big part in the way that that all functions and how long it lasts. And to your point, things like trip counts. If you're in a really busy building with the elevator running nonstop, you're not going to have the same life expectancy of a little bank that gets used maybe once or twice a day.
Absolutely. That's the reason why I believe it is better to speak about number of trips instead of years, because years is not really telling you a real feeling about what is happening there.
I think that's a great takeaway. Can you guys walk us through some of the testing that goes into your product, sheaves or ropes, and why it matters?
For us, it's mainly important to do regular testings with some major suppliers for elevator ropes. At least to stay in touch with each other regularly, to improve our quality, to get practical results of endurance tests, which is entirely different than a common elevator, which is not always running from the ground floor to the top floor. And so you can simulate different version of rides with testing devices, and this gives us pretty much better experience and this is very important. Maybe this is also related to your question before. Usually we only get feedback from the field if something is not working proper, if maybe there's a problem after just 1 year of lifetime of the sheave and the ropes. Usually these are claims when customers say, okay, there's one part of the traction sheave that's not as hard as the rest of the traction sheave because just one rope went down into the grooves. And then it's always not that easy to explain to customers that the quality of the casting is the same from the left to the right of the traction sheave, so that there are probably some other problems caused to the situation. In daily business, when the lifetime of the traction sheave is okay for the customer and is 20 years or longer, we will never ever get a feedback from the customer. There's no customer that's calling us, oh, thank you very much, I would like to inform you that your traction sheave now worked for 25 years, we are very satisfied. We only see it when the customer reorders the traction sheave 25 years later. But this is for us the most important thing to do, tests on our own, rinse tests and others, just to get an experience and an idea about the quality differences in lifetime. For example, if we do different grooves, if we do different surfaces on grooves, we have the opportunity to harden the grooves in our own company, and there's also big difference in the lifetime if you have hardened grooves or non-hardened grooves. And so this is very important for us to do tests on our own.
That's insightful. Nicola, how about you? What about rope testing?
Well, rope testing is a time-consuming operation that regularly we are performing. In Prysmian, we are not manufacturing ropes, but we are trading ropes from relevant manufacturer. From time to time, we are purchasing the same type of rope from 5-6 different producers, and we go into laboratory. They are having the machines to make the fatigue lifetime bending, and we test extensively these ropes to understand, with the same construction, with the same diameter, with the same parameters, how much the performance can change from one manufacturer to another. When it comes to wire ropes are the product of the experience, because there is a secret source, let me call it that way, based on parameter geometrical constructions that can make the same rope and the same construction performing well instead of performing in a poor manner. So main producer, historical producer, are always performing the best into this type of testing because they gained experience, they gained parameters from the field, and then they can perform in a proper manner. So testing wire ropes is, as I said, is a time-consuming operation, but it is something that shall be done to understand how things are going on, because when claims are received from the market, we can be sure about the quality consistency, the performance of the product, and so we can investigate other parameters. For example, when Torsten was mentioning that one groove was weared out and the others were not, very often this is happening due to the lack of equal tensioning of the ropes. So one rope was more tensioned than the others. So when we receive claims that only one or two ropes are damaged and the others are not, generally speaking, this is a problem of installations, something related to equal tensioning, or sometimes is related to alignment of the sheaves. Sometimes the sheaves are rotated by 90 degrees, so the alignment between the sheaves is not so perfect, and so there are one or two ropes that are more stressed than the others. So the complete configuration needs to be studied to understand where the root cause is, and once you understand the root cause, then you can provide the replacement ropes, because when people say, hey, let's provide replacement ropes without analyzing the problem, I say, hey guys, pay attention, because then in a few weeks we will have the same problem problem spotting again. So let's understand where the problem stands. Once we understood, we suggest corrective actions, and then we provide the new set of ropes. And then we can be sure enough that the performance will be better, far better, because we understood the root cause of the problem.
So you mentioned rope tensioning for one and sheave alignment. Are there any other big variables or factors that play into that testing or have the biggest impact?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. There are several parameters that can affect the performance in service. As I said before, the first element to be checked out is the configuration, because the configuration provides the stress on ropes, and then you can have, made by design, a proper system that can last. Then installation topics are really much affecting the situation, so equal tensioning and alignment between sheaves. But before getting to this point, one of the major cause of early failure of ropes is the uncoiling of the ropes to be installed. So it is really important that during the installation process, the rope are not torsioned, not kinked, because sometimes this happens during the installation stage, that kink are created into the rope, and then the rope is presenting this permanent deformation on the surface that can be never corrected any longer. So the rope is to be discarded before being put in service the elevator. So what is really important to educate the market at is the proper methodology of uncoiling ropes, installing procedure, alignment of the sheave, and then equal tensioning. And last but not least, relubrication, because wire ropes are mechanical elements with hundreds of wires moving together, especially in environment in which the stream of air is making lubricant evaporating, so on a regular basis wire ropes need to be relubricated. So if this general maintenance and attention are performed into the field, then you can expect a successful performance of the system into the service. So that's the recommendation I'm trying to get to the market address.
This is not quite often, it's not that easy, because if you get into all the details with your customers, and quite often it ends up that you need to explain your customer that there was a mistake during the assembly of the ropes or the sheave, which usually customers do not want to hear, because it's definitely more easier to claim something, getting a new part, and then everything is done. But bringing customers to the awareness that it's so important. Just, sometimes we achieve videos where you see they usually for many ropes there's a line on each rope, and you see the video and the line is twisting and twisting and twisting, and you have to explain to the customers, okay, this is not okay. You need to redo the whole assembly, and of course this is end up always an extra cost for the customer, and they're quite often not satisfied, because for them it would be much better result if they could just claim something and put the cost to the supplier. And this negotiation and discussion sometimes not that easy. And from my experience, there are countries or companies where the average knowledge is higher coming to this, and there are other countries also where our experience was in the past when we were faced to some problems. They introduced us to some problems, and then I think one of the worst case, I asked the customer, okay, but there's one groove without rope in the center of the sheave. What happened? And he said, okay, this rope broke down a couple of years ago, but we thought it's only working with one rope less. So this is the difference of country to country, how the people are aware of quality issues.
Sure. And I think another takeaway from my perspective, because I do also experience some of that, I don't want to call it headbutting, that's too strong, but when there's an issue in the field and we as the supplier are trying to relate to a contractor that maybe something wasn't done exactly the way that it should be in installation, and naturally those people are going to put their guard up or feel defensive. This is my job. I do this all the time. I know what I'm doing. But one of my takeaways, through this conversation is just little things can make such a big difference. If you have a kink in a rope, that's not something I ever would have thought of. If you unspool your rope incorrectly, you could throw the whole thing out of whack. Something so small can have such a big impact.
And I think the most important thing is that as a reliable supplier, you should never just push back your customer and just answer, it's not our problem. I think I'm the same as Nicola mentioned before. Always at the early beginning, that you ask for the whole details of the elevator, try to help them, try to get into the whole installation and coming back or helping your customer with solutions. Also, we often talk directly, for example, shifts and ropes relate to each other very close, and we usually say if there is a problem, hey, just give us all the information, we will get in touch with the rope manufacturer, we will try to solve or to get into that together, and one of us is coming back to you with a solution.
I fully support this approach, and that's the reason, again, me and Torsten, we are such good friends, because we are trying to troubleshoot the problem into the field, into the market, because otherwise the problem will pop out again in a matter of a few days or a few weeks. So if we are helping our own customer to increase their level of knowledge, their understanding of the troubleshooting and so on, this will be easier life for all of us, for the industry that is having lasting elements, and for ourselves that we are having the less number of claims management as possible. Because statistic is telling us that most of the claim management is solved with troubleshooting. It is not a quality issue of the product itself, but it's a problem of troubleshooting into the field, into the installation, into the configuration, and so on and so forth. So that's the mission that both of us are trying to convey into the market, to educate the market to work in a better way to get a better performance. That's more or less the philosophy.
If you could change one field habit in the industry, what would that be?
The first habit I would like to change into the mind of my customer is refer to the lubrication, because the people are scared about lubrication because they say if we lubricate the rope will slip out from the traction sheet. This is absolutely true if you are using the wrong lubricant, okay? There are different type of and gradation of lubricants. Some of them is suitable for traction applications. Some of them are really not suitable at all, because if you're using the grease that you are using into a gear, then this is not suitable for an elevator rope. So selecting the right lubricant and applying it in a limited amount, because the rope does not need to slip into the lubricant, but you need to apply a very thin layer of lubricant on top of the ropes on a regular basis, then the traction will improve. Because a well-lubricated rope with a suitable lubricant will stay better and deeper into the traction sheet. And so you can experience better traction capability. The rope will not slip out. And furthermore, you are protecting your rope from the environmental parameters, and so also from rouging. At the end of the lifetime of the rope, some red dust will come out in any case. But if you are protecting the rope with a suitable lubricant, this phenomena will happen later into the time. An important point is that also to educate our own customer to use the right lubricant, the right application methods, and maintenance and inspection criteria. Because very often I see installations in which everything is red color. It looks like a Mars planet because the red dust is coming out of the rope and everything is red. And I'm telling to my customer, okay, welcome on Mars. The point is that when this is happening, simply because such high amount of red dust is pulled out of the rope need to be discarded immediately. Because if we look at the discard criteria, both into the A17 or in the ISO 4344, they are both stating if there is red dust pulling out from the rope, then the rope needs to be immediately discarded. So just to come back to the original point, lubrication. This is the first educational point I would like to bring to the attention of the field.
That's a good one. And I think beyond just the ropes, the problems that can be caused by all of that rouging, even just from a machine perspective, you're in a lot of cases working with machines that have big permanent magnets inside, and you're having all that red dust fly into crevices and cracks and places that can have a negative impact on your machine as well.
Sure.
Torsten, what's something you feel like the field often overlooks about sheave conditions or alignment?
There is the awareness of everything that Nicola mentioned before. And I think it's education, it's educating people in doing the assembly of sheaves and pulleys right, regularly checks of each elevator and to know what to check, like rope tension and other things. Today there's a real lack of knowledge, and there are some areas where we supply our sheaves and pulleys where the jobs are regularly done by subcontractors in a way, and these subcontractors quite often never get educated proper, or at least they just have a rough clue about what to do and how to do it. And so this, if I could wish, I would like to increase the average knowledge by educating people.
What are some great resources you would give to people to better their education outside of Nicola's book, because we already know that one?
Next to Nicola's book, I think there is for example, from the German Association for Supplier for the Elevator Industry, there is an education system. You know, in Germany we have this average education system for many industry, for many jobs, and as there's no education system for being an elevator engineer, so they establish an education system which is from just some basic knowledge, and it ends up that you reach a level of highly expert in the elevator industry. But this is mostly theoretically related, and there's another opportunity in Germany where you can have also some practical experience, because many people enter the industry from different industries and got taught by colleagues, which is good in a way. But I think that there should be more education for just the entire elevator. Today you have some experts, they are very good in controllers, others are very good in maybe renewing ropes and sheaves. I think it would be great to have, we're always talking about the good old days, but I think the average knowledge of elevator engineers 20 years ago was higher than it's today.
I think that's insightful. Let's switch gears, if you will, a little bit, and let's talk about coated ropes and belt. Nicola, maybe kick that off for us.
Well, entering into the coated suspension means, the elastomeric coated suspension means that typically our PU coated rope or TPU coated belt is bringing us in a completely different planet. So the mindset shall be totally different in this respect. If with the relationship between steel wire ropes and traction sheaves, we are having hundreds of years of experience in which we know that the friction factor is generally always the same, irrespective of the rope construction. When it comes to coated suspension means, then this certainty will crash down, because coated suspension means are coated by TPU, thermoplastic polyurethane. And we all know that the polyurethane is not a pure material, it is a compound. And every company is making this compound with different ingredients. They are having different recipes, to say. So every combination of coated suspension means and traction sheave can give you different friction factors because of the TPU compound and because of the roughness of the traction sheave. Because depending on the process of manufacturing, Torsten later will explain better this topic. Depending on the process in which you are cutting the groove, making the surface and so on, the same sheave manufactured by 3 different producers can have 3 different roughness surface. Then if you are combining this with 3 different TPU manufacturers, then you have the proliferation of the friction factors. So this is the first challenge to be addressed here, because now coated suspension means looks like not any longer as a commodity. They are made by project. Because if a wire rope is a commodity, because you can replace one wire rope from producer A to equivalent rope of producer B or C, at the condition that he's having the same braking load, the same cross-section, and so on and so forth. When it comes to belts or PU ropes, that's not exactly the same topic, because the braking load is not enough to warranty you that the system will work properly. You need to be sure that the combination between the 2 elements has been tested and validated for the use into the service. So if you are having the belt manufactured by the producer A, then when it comes the point to replace this belt, you need to get this belt again from the manufacturer A, You cannot replace the belt with a manufacturer B because even though the braking load is the same and dimension are the same, the TPU is different. And then this can affect the performance in service. So this is something that need to be very well clarified to the market because it's a completely different from the experience we gained so far from the wire ropes. The other point that needs to be bear in mind for the user is to be clean, because coated suspension means are supposed to work in clean environment, and regularly they need to be cleaned out because the dirty, the dust, the contamination from the outside can affect dramatically their performance. So on a regular basis they need to be cleaned out, and they shall be taken as far away as possible from lubricant and from spray. For example, imagine that in the past happened to me that a coated suspension means into an elevator was working properly, then suddenly it was starting to slip on the traction sheave like an unbelievable situation. Then I learned that the maintenance guy was using a spray to re-lubricate the guide rail, and this spray went completely on top of the coated suspension means, contaminating the surface. Remember that the polyurethane is having voids inside, okay, and then the lubricant is penetrating inside the TPU, and once it's inside, it will be very difficult to remove from the surface, even with cleaning agents. So put together all that, and you are understanding that the mindset shall be different. Then you can claim to me, hey, Nicola, but with all these problems, you are creating more trouble than solutions. But if you are approaching this coated suspension means with the right mindset, with the right attitude, with the right training of the installers, then the performance will be very high, because imagine the belt is having small cords inside in diameter less than 2 millimeters, and the bending ratio is higher than 40:1. So the lifetime of the belt with a fatigue lifetime bending is so long that can withstand the complete lifetime of the elevator. So if you're using this in a proper manner, you have a long-lasting elements if you are maintaining them in a proper manner. But furthermore, you are getting very small diameter sheaves, and this is due to the fact that generally gearless are used in this type of application. You know that the dimension of the gearless and the cost of the gearless is directly proportional to the diameter of the traction sheave. So the smaller the traction sheave, the lighter is the motor, the easier it is to be installed, and the larger can be the cabin. This is a domino effect in a certain way. So this is bringing several advantages into the field. And furthermore, with smaller diameter traction sheave, to get the same linear speed of the cabin, the motor shall run faster. And the motor that is spinning faster is into a higher energetical efficiency area. So the motor is more efficient at that speed. And so this brings furthermore the topic of the energetical efficiency into the field. But the real key message I would like to convey to the listener is be prepared. The mindset between wire ropes and coated suspension means are two different mindsets. You need to switch gear to use properly the coated suspension means, because a new set of knowledge of experience need to be placed into this area, and the most important part is cleanliness. You need to be very clean, okay? No grease, no dirty gloves. So sometimes I'm telling to customer, please use white cotton gloves in a way that you can understand if they are dirty or not. And then you can understand if you are contaminating the surface or not contaminating. So it's a different approach, but if approached in a proper manner, you will get a lot of benefit out of this technology.
I think that's really fascinating and very hard to imagine a clean situation in any machine room, any hoistway I've ever been in. That's kind of a crazy thought. And so ropes and coated ropes and belt are something that you guys have been dealing with globally for a long time, but they aren't as prevalent in the North American market yet. So what are maybe some pitfalls that you guys have seen globally that we can take away in North America as something maybe to avoid or from?
The first pitfall is for coated suspension mean to ensure that the combination between the coated suspension mean and the traction sheave is tested. Because if the two elements are tested together, then you have the certainty that they can work properly. But if you are sourcing the different elements and testing the combination together, then most likely you are going to face trouble. Most likely in the future, the producer of belt and the producer of traction sheave will cooperate together to make test of combination in a way to provide to the final user the declaration that the two elements has been tested together and they can work properly. That's what I'm expecting is going to happen. This is the main pullback that can happen into the market. But then I would like Torsten to explain about sheave roughness. That is, just to be clear on this point, that is not coming from my imagination, but is a real topic.
If I remember right, there was an experience on this years ago. When it comes to coated ropes or belts, many customers or company decided, hey, this is a simple machining part, we can do it on our own or source it somewhere else where it's pretty much cheaper. And pretty much cheaper means sometimes just a difference of less than 10% in purchasing price. And once you have Sheaves' products, let me say, if you just have a view on it with your eyes, probably you won't see a difference. The difference is just visible when you look into it more detailed on a microscope or using some tools to see the difference in the roughness of the surface. This is very important, but also the way how to manufacture those parts. And probably this is, in my opinion, sometimes the gap of this 7 to 10% in price difference, that some people first want to go for the cheap solution. Sometimes they get their own experience and improve their product, but sometimes they decided later on that the 7% in purchasing cost is not the tricky point when you see the entire elevator. But we can only repeat and repeat that even here quality matters.
What innovations in ropes or sheaves is exciting you the most right now?
Right now, yeah, it's maybe the change from standard sheaves and steel ropes, proper to what we spoke about before, like belts and PO coated ropes. I'm really looking forward maybe to the future to have different ideas how to bring an elevator up and down. I think there's a focus of lightweight technologies to save more weight, to have different opportunities, and I think there are some new ideas coming up in the next years.
Nicola, how about you?
What is fascinating of this industry is that it's continuously evolving. So the drive that today we are getting into small sheave coated suspension means is also driving us into a concept of finite lifetime of the combination. So the combination between the two elements is having a certain expectancy of life, and we can monitor that with a counter tripper, for example, that the expectancy of life is 1 million trips, and with a counter tripper we can check at which point of the life expectancy we are. And this is bringing us into another topic that is arriving with brutal force, that is the IoT, the remote monitoring of the elevator performance. As we said before, for example, belts are having a very long lifetime into the service. So they can, if treated in a proper manner, they can last as long as the elevator, because they can last millions of trips into the service. Then it comes the point to understand when the system is starting to deviate from a proper functioning point. And then it comes sensor about vibrations, sleeping detectors, and so on. Because the real problem of coated suspension means is not the steel cords inside. It will last as long as we want. But is the jacketing, is the coating. Because if the coating is starting to be contaminated, degraded, damaged, and so on, you will have an immediate effect on the vibration of comfort of ride and all other parameters that can be detected by a sensor on top of the cabin of the elevator. So the near future of this industry is related into the data, into the digitalized information that you can gather from that. Because from an indirect source, you can understand where the problem stands. If it is the jacketing that is the major contaminated, the slippage, the vibration, also the roller bearing of the sheaves you can detect by vibration analysis. So it is really fascinating to go into this direction. It's complex, obviously, because we need to get used with digitalization, IoT, connectivity, algorithm, but it's really interesting to see where we are going. And so how to develop furthermore this into the field.
It's a fascinating topic, and I think really exciting for us as an industry as we start to lean more into technology and the things that data can teach us, shape the future for all of us. Torsten, if you could give technicians in the field one takeaway message today, what would that be?
Stay confident, as I think being a technician in the elevator industry, you have a bright future ahead, which is different than other industries. That's probably something which is not related to technology, but I think this is a very good industry to be in. It's a satisfying industry. I love to be in that industry since almost 30 years, and I think I would like to tell everybody it was a good choice to stay in that industry.
I think I can agree with that. Well, guys, I really appreciate you joining the show today. I think it was a fascinating conversation with a lot of good takeaways from my perspective. Learned a lot of things for sure. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for inviting us. It has been an incredible, useful conversation. We hope we shared enough for the field to learn about how to improve, how to do things better. And the last takeaway is please never stop learning, because it's the only way that we can get better and better into the applications. So I'm suggesting everyone to learn from every source possible, whatever it is, but just be curious. It's the only way to get in line with the market development.
Great point. All right, guys. So thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Hi, thanks for listening to this episode of Let's Talk Elevators. If you enjoyed the conversation, subscribe and leave us a review. If you have questions or ideas for a future episode, connect with us at letstalkelevators.com. Until next time, stay safe and keep moving up.